A lot of 2003 talk. Game played in 2003. We're weeding through that again. All right. There it is. There it is.
You look at Miami's current roster, and most of them were still in diapers or prior to that, when Miami was relevant. I know that they have a big game coming up against Clemson this weekend. I am a big Derek King fan. I think they're an exciting team to watch, but Clemson knows how to win these types of games. Miami hasn't won one of these games in forever and a day. And I think when Miami gets punched in the mouth the first time, and it's going to happen repeatedly, especially if it's a wet track, I think that Clemson is going to run away with this game. Not even going to be close, 24, 28 points minimum.
The comment below, confidence has been a lacking trait in Miami for years. This season is different. I would argue the opposite. Confidence has been way too high for years at Miami for no reason at all, and that has been a poor trait.
Baby. It's the you.
And when you are confident for no reason, and it's like building a house on sand, basically, and that's what Miami has been for many, many years. Maybe they have a foundation now. Who knows? We'll see. I do find it ironic, Kevin, that bad weather would sidetrack the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I think they have the right head coach. I think that they're a program on the rise, but they're not ready yet. They're not ready yet. Beating up on Florida State, who's going to get boat raced by Notre Dame and whoever else they played at this point. Louisville, who was a fraudulent top 25 team just because other conferences weren't in the picture. I don't see this. I think Miami will give them a good quarter, but Clemson will, the class will rise to the top, and Clemson has been far and away the best ACC team for at least a decade at this point, and this game does not. I have a feeling I'll be going over and looking for other games at the same time because this game won't hold my attention.
I think Derek King he's somewhat legitimate, I think, at quarterback for Miami. I mean, they've put some points on the board. It's whether or not they can contain Clemson is probably the biggest question. Clemson gave up 23 points last week to Virginia, so I don't think their defense is quite where it was a year ago. I think some of those NFL losses are finally starting to come home to roost for them, just as they probably will for Ohio State, and somewhat even Alabama hasn't looked perfect so far this year, but they've been pretty good. So, yeah, maybe, this is a year where Florida, for instance, I've been very impressed with what I've seen out of Florida so far with Trask at quarterback, that maybe they sneak in there instead of somebody. But I guess let's play this game on Saturday night and see if Clemson, this year's edition of Clemson, is for real, or if Miami is close to being back. A lot of people skeptical about that, but I do like King, and we'll see. Maybe it gets to be a shootout, and a funny bounce goes one way or the other, and Miami somehow is there at the end. But they're a 14-point underdog, and that kind of caught my eye because, first of all, Clemson hasn't been that dominant. Secondly, Miami, except for who they played, Louisville and Florida State, they have been that dominant. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see when they shake it up and see what comes out.
Miami went 10-0 in 2017, but really had no big wins. I think that there was a Notre Dame win in there or something, but we haven't really experienced a Miami fan base during the social media era where they could secure a win like this. I don't know if America is ready. I don't know if the internet is ready. I certainly know I am not ready for what this could mean if Miami were to win and what the fan reaction would be like. Fortunately, I don't think it's a realistic concern. So I won't get too worked up about it this weekend. And if it happens, there's always a couple weeks down the road when they lose to Pittsburgh.
I know my Phil Steele.
They don't need to have a good team for this because they keep trying to overturn the 2002 Fiesta Bowl. That game was forever and a day ago. They keep doing it. It was defensive. It was pass interference. Held them in the end zone. Get over it. Get over it.
My Phil Steele
whether
has the results of that 2017.
everything else down there. But get over it. You lost.
My Phil Steele has the results of that 2017 season. They lost to Pittsburgh, who I don't think was very good. They were 11.5-point favorite and lost the game 24-14. And then the last time they played Clemson was in the ACC championship game that year, and they lost 38-3 as like a 10-1 or 11-1 team. They lost 38-3 to Clemson. So, hey, are we in for something like that tomorrow? And I think King keeps them in the game, but nothing would surprise me, I guess.
That team had a 14-3 lead in the Orange Bowl against Wisconsin and lost by 10.
Yeah. Wisconsin seems to play them every year in the postseason and beats them. So, yeah.
3 times in the last roughly 10 years.
Yeah.
That's not a good matchup for Miami, which is, I would say, maybe a superficial kind of program at times. And Wisconsin's too
superficiality.
And Wisconsin is very not superficial.
Too much Wisconsin.
Superficiality.
Yes.
Blocking and tackling, posing for the cameras. Blocking and tackling.
Whoa. Here we go.
Wearing a turnover chain.
I'm going to have to bear the brunt of all this. You guys realize that, right?
We've missed you.
So I pointed out this was about 6 months ago after the last season in which I actually thought I overrated Miami, and it turned out that I did at 8-4, and they went 6-7. The previous year, 9-3, when they went 7-6. I had to point that out a number of times a few nights ago, as I was called a Miami hater for simply pointing to the video in which I outlined that over the last 15 years, it's been a 57% winning percentage program. So they have recruited top 15 to 20 talent, not elite talent across the board, but top 15 to 20 talent. And they've turned that top 15 talent into top 40 teams. And that's what they've been. And there have been, I think I mentioned this a couple months ago right here, 43 teams that have finished in the AP top 10 since Miami last did. 43. That's 8 teams plus per Power 5 conference. It's pretty staggering. And as Tony pointed out, this is going to be a huge game for Miami. This is run of the mill for Clemson, and that's all there is to it. There's nothing wrong with Miami fans and wanting to think that this is the team, and it may very well be a better team than most think, and may knock off Clemson because they have finally gotten a quarterback with dynamic playmaking ability who seems to be making the right decisions, and he's such a huge upgrade over what they've had the last 10 or 15 years. But they've played UAB, Louisville, and Florida State, and they've done against those teams what you would expect a top 10 team to do, but now they're truly playing a top 3 to 4 team in the country.
You go from coaches like Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson, and Butch Davis to Larry Coker, Randy Shannon, Manny Moe, and Jack, and some homeless bum off of the corner of A1A and
JBL.
I mean,
JBL was the coach there for a while, and so was Mark Richt for about a cup of coffee.
They're always going to be able to have talent, but it's so much about development, and they've just made ridiculously bad head coaching hires, and I think they really thought that they stole one when they brought in Mark Richt, and Mark Richt was a shell of the Mark Richt that we saw at UGA. And I think that Manny Diaz is the right guy. We'll see how long he lasts. But they went from having some of the biggest names in coaching to, guys that I don't really even remember the name of. I mean, when the name that jumps off the page the most of me is Al Golden, it may be Al Bundy.
Yeah, that's the guy I was referring to as JBL, the wrestler. They think they were separated at birth.
I would like to ask people that reference that game to not only watch the play that resulted in, of course, a converted first down on the pass interference. Just go back and watch the last 5 minutes of the game. Just try to remove whatever colors from your fandom, whichever side. Just watch the last 5 minutes of the game, or watch the entire game again. But watch the last 5 minutes and see if you see any other calls that could have reversed fortunes for an offense staying on the field and maybe running out the clock.
Remove your colors, remove your fake turnover chains, and just watch the game and see Dustin Fox getting his jersey ripped off, and see Chris Gamble catching a pass on 3rd and 14 that gets ruled an incompletion, and then we could also talk about Clemson, bad calls in the Clemson game if we want to start complaining about bad refs or refs in particular. But yeah, that Miami game, I wonder why Miami fans can't just watch it and understand it and see it, because there's plenty of video proof. There's why they can't get over it, I guess, because maybe they can't get over it because it is true what I always say, and that's Jim Tressel broke Miami. And if they could just reverse time and make it like that never happened, then maybe they won't be broken. But you can't get that game back. You can't get the last 2 decades back. You can't fix it all in one day. And maybe that's another reason why the U is the issue, has the issues it does, is because they think they're the U, so it can just be, there's nothing to fix. You just go and play. And whenever somebody transfers to Miami, that's the last time I'm ever going to see them, because I know pretty much their career is over. Now, maybe that's not, we're seeing some Jalen Phillips is doing well at Miami, but when people, what's that?
When he's not ejected from games.
Well, but like when somebody chooses Miami, it's just like, okay, I see you. You're not interested in football. You're interested in the idea of Miami. And I think when you're not interested in football, it's really hard to build a football culture. And I don't think they have a football culture. I think they have a Hurricanes culture, and I don't think that's winning. And I don't think all of that talent back in the early 90s and mid 90s, they were playing against offenses and defenses that were all very basic. There's no more basic anymore. And I would like to see what they could have done against what we consider modern things now, and would they still hold up, and would things be so much? Would it be as easy to stop for all of those guys? Sure, Ed Reed would still be great. There'd still be plenty of talent, but would they have just been not necessarily a dynasty, lesser than maybe Alabama? Would they be lesser than a Clemson? I don't think they would have been the end all be all. I don't think they'd be worthy of 2 30 for 30 documentaries. Not that they were worthy of that anyway.
It wouldn't translate well into today's game, because with targeting, and if you breathe on the quarterback or something, I mean, that's not good. I don't think that it was a different era. I don't think that those teams back then would translate well.
There's a need for discipline now that maybe there wasn't back then. And you don't want to give offenses too many opportunities for, a late hit or roughing the punter and stuff like that, because that will come back to haunt you.
Well, there's a few different reasons why that loss has stung, and it has reverberated and continued. One being exactly what you said. They haven't bounced back from it. So had they stayed an elite team and continue to win championships and stay in contention, then it would be, well, we should have won that game, but it would have been lost. Plus, the sting of losing a championship is one thing, but the sting of losing a championship when you already assumed it was a win, that's tough to take.
But Ohio State is over the 2006 game against Florida. Everybody thought they were going to win that one, but Miami, you're right. There's a confidence level there that no other people can match. I think what it reminds me of is, like, Miami has become what happened to Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. If the coach had just put him in that championship game, they would have won. And because he didn't get to be put into that game, he now lives in a van out in the field all by himself, and just has driven himself crazy thinking about, if the coach just would have put him in, he would have been all state. And if Ohio State wouldn't have beaten Miami, Miami would have been all state, and they could throw a football over them mountains.
Back to my Al Bundy. He once scored 5 touchdowns against Polk High. Well, I'm sure they're going to handle the Heat loss tonight really well too. So,
We talk Ohio State football here each and every week.
Sometimes,
Sometimes.
unless Miami comes out.
I just did an hour before this hour. I'm my head's spinning right now.
Next week we'll talk Michigan and go for an hour.
Oh Lord.
The Miami invasion is here, and the Miami invasion comes to all my shows, which is a great thing. I appreciate the Miami fan base that I have. I just simply tell the truth and do my very best to stay neutral and tell the truth and the facts. Sometimes it is a dynasty of sorts, a legacy unlike anything in college football. I've got a contributor that comes on, Cam Underwood, that calls it the microwave dynasty, and that's exactly what it was. It was an early 80s through mid 90s dynasty, and then a couple of years tacked on around 2000, 2001, and 2. And that's the history of the program.
Was the Nebraska dynasty better? Because I remember like in college where there was just no hope of Nebraska losing, like for like 2 or 3 years straight. Like, and then when Arizona State did it, you're like, whoa, this sort of thing is possible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which one would be better, although I guess then they played on the field and decided it.
Yeah. When Nebraska finally beat Miami in the 94-95 Orange Bowl, that was a shock to many because Miami just trounced them every time they got on the field. And then Nebraska figured out that they could keep their style of offense, but just add some speed and figure that out. And there's actually a good documentary on the Big Ten Network about that Nebraska team that that pulled through and finally beat Miami, and they changed their philosophy. They were able to, and this is difficult to do, was to add to their previous philosophy, not discard the Nebraska way and the weightlifting and the bulk and the power game, but just add to it. And it was very successful with 3 championships in 4 years.